Sound is by far one of the most important aspects of any media. Whether it's diegetic or non-diegetic, it is something that truly adds to the scene, and in my opinion is most definitely one of the most make or break aspects of a scene. And Ninjago both acknowledges and has honestly done a very good job at accomplishing that side of its production. The sound in Ninjago is nothing short of perfect. Cut to credits. But the thing is that there are many aspects that go into it, and in my opinion really does demonstrate how they've spent a lot of time really curating these sounds to really perfect how the scene is performed. So in today's video we are going to discuss 3 different aspects of Ninjago that really demonstrate how it has perfected sound. Go through what they mean, how they symbolize, and how they actually really demonstrate what they're trying to portray, and just give credit to the people who are in charge of this aspect of the production, because it is nothing short of amazing and satisfying. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about how Ninjago perfected sound. The first way that Ninjago has perfected sound is through the sounds that they use in terms of the ninja's techniques, be it air jitsu, spin jitsu, and rising dragon. These all have their own unique sounds that really demonstrate how they work and how they flow within the world itself. The sound demonstrates their power, their ferocity, their speed. It really is a demonstration on what type of abilities truly lie beneath it. Spinjitsu's sound is represented by this fast, winding and windy feel. You can hear how quick it truly is and how strong it is at the exact same time. There is this background noise as well that is almost metallic in nature, which is a good demonstration on how harsh it can be when used against an opponent. Spinjitsu is a very strong technique, so to have this fast, this quick, and this heavy feel to it really does feel correct here. The sound has evolved over time, but I think only in the way of actually getting better. The modern day Spinjitsu sound, in my opinion, is a perfect representation on how it really does accomplish its feats. I think it's a really solid and really intimidating type sound, whilst also remaining calm and balanced. Air Jitsu does actually have a similar sound to Spin Jitsu, which does make sense because it is based off of Spin Jitsu. It does still have that windy, quick type sound that really does resonate properly, but there is one very particular difference here. One thing that Air Jitsu does accomplish is that when it's initially starting, you can actually hear it's at a much deeper bass. It's actually a much lower pitch than Spin Jitsu, and the longer an Air Jitsu master does use it, the more higher toned it does become. This does make sense because you're using more momentum to go further up. You start lower down, you start in an area where there's sound to reflect off of, and then you end up in the mid-air where there's nothing to really reflect. So it does actually really work, and I think it does demonstrate the flying ability that Air Jitsu does accomplish. And then lastly is Rising Dragon, still hearing those windy type features, but has a very distinct difference when it does come to this technique specifically. One thing that's in Rising Dragon technique is a lot of background noise, and all of them work perfectly. For each individual ninja, you can hear very faintly their elemental sounds, which makes sense because it is using elemental power. The second thing you hear is the return of that more metallic-like noise. This is representing the fact that there is a physical dragon that is being manifested within the actual technique itself. And the last thing, and I think is the most important thing to go alongside the dragon, is the very faint sounds of dragon noises as well. I love how you can hear the fact that it truly is a rising dragon. They really have demonstrated properly how the sound does transition into creating that elemental type being, and honestly was just the really nice icing on the cake for me. So to wrap all of the techniques up in a nice silver bow, I really do think all of them have the ability to feel distinct. I can identify each and every single one of them from the sound alone, which is a fantastic thing. They really did perfect how each technique does differ from one another. They very easily could have just used the Spin Jitsu noises, but they chose not to, and I think that is honestly very respectable, and all of them, because of it, just become so much better. But that is the first way they did perfect sound. The second way that they did perfect things was through the case of the ninja's elemental powers. This is more in reference to much later on within the series though. One thing that we do get to note is that all of the ninja have these very unique and very accurate sounds when it does come to their own respective elemental power. I could talk about all of them and all of it would be completely valid, but there are 3 specific examples I do want to bring up that I do think best represents it. The first one I want to talk about is going to be Zane's. Zane's ice powers have a very distinct noise which is perfect for what they are trying to accomplish. The thing about it is that it's an ice ability, and it's a very high-pitched screeching type noise. It sounds cold, which of course should be expected because it's ice, but I do think it's a really good representation on how it should sound. One thing about his powers is that you can really hear how cold it truly is when you do hear the elemental abilities being wired up, whether it's just Zane's hands or actually firing ice itself. Zane actually has this really nice, like I said, screeching noise, which does just feel like an appropriate association here. The second ninja I want to talk about here is going to be Nia's. Nia's water power is possibly my favourite sound when it does come to Ninjago. Her ability has this very high metallic-esque type noise, but also does sound very aqueous by nature. It sounds fluid, it sounds watery, it sounds exactly as you would expect when it does come to water powers. There is something just so satisfying about Nia's abilities, and it really does just demonstrate perfectly how her powers are performed. And the last one to talk about here is going to be Jay. You were probably expecting Lloyd's, but I think Lloyd's kind of just speaks for itself. But in the other hand, Jay's power in Dragon's Rising specifically really is the embodiment of lightning in my opinion. One thing that we do get to hear is that he has multiple sounds for multiple different states. When Jay is just simply winding up his powers within his hands, you can hear that it really does sound like lightning being contained. You can hear it banging and cladding around Jay's hands itself. It's so satisfying to hear. But then when Jay actually uses lightning, it has a whip-like sound, which does feel perfect again for elemental lightning. It's quick, it makes round corners, it makes these really snappy moves that really do come across like a crack of a whip. And I do think it really does show how dangerous lightning powers can be. If there's one thing I've taken from Jay when it does come to Dragon's Rising, is that anytime he uses lightning powers, I am most definitely listening. So again, in similar vein to the techniques, to really wrap it up, the ninja's elemental abilities are really showing off how nice the powers truly sound. I didn't mention Lloyd's life powers or Kai's fire or Cole's earth, but the thing is that all of them do have the exact same thing. You can really hear the fire, the life, and the earth in their elemental abilities. It all does just come across perfectly, and I just really love how it does show off how powerful the ninja truly are. And the last category of perfected sound has to go to, just simply put, the villains. The villains of Ninjago all have their own unique sounds that come across with their own unique abilities, characteristics, the whole light that does demonstrate their character, but all of them are unique and all of them are absolutely perfect sounding. Starting off, for example, with Imperium. Imperium is a very technological, very advanced civilization, and all of their weapons and technology really does reflect that, but the sound is the perfect representation of it. All of the sounds that the weapons make, the protons made, all of it really did just come across as this really nice technological sound. Very metal, very allergic, very nice and sounding very advanced in comparison to what we're used to. Imperium really do just demonstrate the fact that they are an advanced civilization, and it does correlate with the story that we were given with them. The second best example of it is Thunderfang. Of course, Thunderfang does many things wrong when it does come to Ninjago storytelling, but the sound of Thunderfang is absolutely fantastic. The dragon noises he makes really does emphasize that chaos feel. The thing about the dragons is that they sound loud, but with Thunderfang there's a distinct echo that really does just resonate how much power is truly within him. Then, speaking of how he absorbs souls, the power of him just taking away someone is really visually distinct at the same time as being audibly extinct. It's amazing to truly hear. And then the last way of putting it is just simply put his own chaos abilities. It sounds dangerous, it sounds dark, it sounds mean, exactly what you would want when it does come to Thunderfang. And the last one to talk about is going to be Raz. Raz has had a very interesting journey across the time of the show, but now he's gotten his hands on a couple of the Source Dragon icons, it really does just demonstrate the unique sounds that do come along with it. I think if any time Raz bangs together two of the different icons, the energy, the sound, the weight of it really is deep and heavy. All of the icons have this very distinct sound that really show how powerful they truly are, show the amount of energy that is coursing throughout them. They sound dangerous, they sound objectively really harsh, and I think it's amazing. The best example is Raz's hammer. That hammer, which we've seen since season 1, have always had such a distinct low bass sound anytime he swings it, really demonstrating the power it does have. The perfect showing of villain sound. But with all of these examples showing a pattern of sound within Ninjago, I do think on an overall it is very safe to say that they have accomplished something special here. Everything about the show has that distinct sound and that distinct feel. Of course, things are reused here and there, and I'm not denying that whatsoever, but when it does come to elemental sounds, to techniques, to villains, to heroes, to anything of the likes, you really can tell that there's a lot of love and a lot of effort put into it. I think the Ninjago team that's in charge of these sound effects really do deserve more credit, because it's one of the things that makes the show for me and truly does show how good it really is. But thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people, and if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and become a legend that you see on screen. Each of you, your support means the absolute world to me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay,